He'll have the money for it.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's address this elephant in the room. At least for me right now, the biggest offseason story. I'm a Michigan guy, and anything that affects Michigan usually is interest to Ohio State fans too. But Jim Harbaugh, man, like Brian said something right before we were on here. It's like he said, "Shit or get off the pot." Like he's constantly flirting with the NFL. There's always rumors. It's affecting recruiting. I want Jim Harbaugh to go at this point. Like we've just went to the playoffs twice, beat Ohio State 2 times in a row, 2 years. We have 0 top 100 recruits in the top 100, and it's not because of NIL. It's not NIL's fault. Michigan actually is doing decent, not good, but decent with NIL. Lately, it's all because kids don't even know who the coach is going to be. Head coach leaves, their position coaches leave. Like I'm ready for Jim to just get the heck out. He obviously wants to go. Brian, what do you think on this?
The longer that there's uncertainty, the worse it gets. And the fact that he's done it kind of 2 years in a row, and he's not, he's kind of come out and said, I expect to be the Michigan coach next year. But man, you went and took an interview on signing day last year. So credibility, with stories like this is not the greatest for him. And of course it's going to affect the confidence level. And what's weird is like I can understand if the reports are true that he is truly frustrated with the state of the college football game. I get it. I totally get it. I understand why there would be appeal to going back to the NFL. I think he feels like he's got unfinished business there. You can understand if, you want to go back and give that thing another shot. You lost the Super Bowl to your brother. That's got to be a little rough. I can also understand that, other than he's got a loaded team coming back, but Nate, if you look beyond, yes, he's beaten Ohio State 2 years in a row. That is huge. He has certainly got that program on the right trajectory after the embarrassment of, having his salary cut and all of that. But his record in bowl games is atrocious, and his record against top teams is still atrocious. Mm-hmm. It's buoyed by 2 years in a row of kicking the crap out of Ohio State, but there is still the track. He's still got a track record of not having success at the highest level in the sport. So, but yeah, I mean, the longer it drags on, the worse it gets.
Oh yeah. I mean, do you know what his bowl record is? He's won once. Literally one time. And that was his first year in 2015. He beat a poor Florida team. Terrible.
Yeah, it's been bad. And his record against top 10 teams has been bad too. Yep. It's been buoyed by these last 2 wins against Ohio State. But if he didn't have those, or if Ohio State would have won even one of those, but that said, I mean, you do have a really good team coming back. They've addressed some issues in the portal already. You've got JJ McCarthy coming back. You've got Donovan Edwards coming back. So if he does stay, he's set up for what should be a pretty successful season. I just don't understand why he can't be more definitive about it, unless he really is holding out hope and he just hasn't been given that offer. And he really is going to wait until, he's exhausted all those opportunities. And it doesn't help that the NFL season is not completely over yet either. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, man. I certainly wouldn't want to be. I don't envy your position or Michigan fans' position, sitting in purgatory waiting on this guy to make a decision.
Yeah, that's a great term. It's purgatory. Exactly. I mean, Michigan, and coaches lie. He says he's going to be back next year. Coaches all lie. They seriously do. I don't take what they're saying now, not even with a grain of salt. I mean, it's going to get to the point where he's going to have to shit or get off the pot. But the transfer portal right now ends January 17th. So I really, really hope it happens soon. I hope that he leaves. And I hope we get a college coach to come after this. Not another NFL guy, not Sean Payton. Not that he would be a bad coach at Michigan, but he's an NFL guy. I want a college coach where recruits know that he's just not going to be darting off to the NFL or, Dallas Cowboys come, calling. And it's like, ooh, I like that. Shiny object. I'm going to leave.
Nate, let me ask you, where do you come down on if Harbaugh is to leave, if he were to pick, his own successor, like Moore or one of the guys that are already in the program to take that over? Because by all accounts, it seems like Moore is a guy that he trusts, a lot like Marcus Freeman was for Brian Kelly when Brian Kelly left last year. Where would you come down on someone who's already in the program being if Harbaugh were to leave to handpick a successor?
Good question. I don't know about Moore, honestly. He's a great position coach. Great. What he's done with that offensive line and with just offensive coordinator total, it's been fantastic. I don't know if he can be a good head coach. I don't know how good of a recruiter he is. I mean, those things kind of matter in college football.
That's fair. But absolutely fair.
I mean, I would love to. I mean, it would be great. He seems like a great coach, so it would probably be a great hire. I just don't know about the other skills that it takes. Those other guys, yeah. I have been, Mike Hart is being talked about too, but he's a position coach. Maybe that would happen, but I don't see that happening. They really need to get a coach who's seasoned, who knows how to be a head coach, CEO type, is a great recruiter, because that's really where Michigan is falling short. Hey, Diego, you're just getting closer and closer to the camera and just showing off. Is that on purpose?
Well, you want him to hire Mike Loxley?
No, I definitely do not. Actually, you know what? I'm very ambivalent on Loxley, but he's known for being a recruiter, and sometimes I wonder how you could get fewer Maryland recruits on any given recruiting season. So fewer good Maryland recruits, I should say. Top of the top 25.
Brian and Diego. There is one guy out there who's a legendary head coach that is just kind of sitting in a booth.
Urban Meyer
on Saturdays.
Urban Meyer.
I mean, why are we not going to say that? I haven't seen a lot of people say that. I haven't watched a lot. I'm sure someone has, but he's
an Ohio guy. He coached for Ohio State.
Urban Meyer had Michigan, Ohio State, and Notre Dame as the three schools he was going to get out of his contract with. I think it was Utah. Michigan was one of those teams, and it's not like Ohio State has an opening. So that there is definitely like an elephant in the room that people don't want to talk about, and that
dumpster fire
kind of is hitting it for me.
That would be an absolute dumpster fire. Yeah, I can't imagine. They've come so far into building the culture these last few years the way they want it. I think they'd be much better off staying in-house with someone who's helped to build that mentality up, especially the guy that, where have they been the toughest the last 2 years, Nate? On the entire football team, what unit? Offensive line. Why in the hell would you risk losing that? Like, you have an identity. It's blocking people. It's kicking the crap out of people on the line of scrimmage right now, and they are an absolute destination for not just. But if you're not doing well in the recruiting rankings, that's one place teams have shown over and over and over again. You can go into the portal and get quality offensive line guys that are 2-3 years into college. They're 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, grown ass men, and they can come into your program and you can kick ass with them. So,
it's true.
I really respect what they've done on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball the last couple of years with their young coaching staff. And even if Harbaugh left, I think it would be a huge mistake to go out and go through the same embarrassment and problems that they had through various coaching searches before. I mean, they practically had to beg Harbaugh to come in and stay there initially. So it's I don't know, man. I would stay far away from a guy like Urban Meyer. I don't think he's I don't think he's good for that established culture at all.
And Mac House just asked a question in the comments, said, would Michigan get behind Meyer not being a Michigan man? And, I think that
if he wins.
If he actually got, yeah, exactly. I mean, there was some friction when he joined Ohio State. He just got done a few years before that, beating them in the national championship game.
Yeah, but he didn't have the
friction.
embarrassment of. I don't think he had the embarrassment of the Jacksonville debacle and everything that happened. But, I don't think that he's. And not to mention, I mean, he legitimately does have health issues too. And I think there was some criticism that while he's an excellent evaluator of talent, both in terms of on the field talent and coaching talent, I think the game schematically has passed him by. And that
why do you say that?
Because he was an offensive guy, throughout his career, who was heavily involved in game planning, scheming. He may not have been calling the plays, but he was heavily involved in that up through the 2014, maybe the 2015 season. But even he realized that he needed an offensive mind that was next level when he hired Ryan Day, because they had sputtered for a couple of years and wasted really loaded rosters trying to run antiquated read option heavy, quarterback run heavy offenses. And you can run the quarterback, but you better be able to have some NFL and some spread passing concepts in your offense to be diverse enough to win these games. Even the king of defense, Nick Saban, realized that. You can't win these games 20-16 anymore, 16-12. You can't win these games like that. You got to be able to score. Look at the scores in the semifinal games. You got to score in the 40s to win big time football now.
Those scores surprised me a little bit, though. There was like no defense being played. It seemed like
it was crazy. I didn't expect it either, but man, I mean, that just shows you more often than not. Go back in these scores the last few years, and if you don't have an elite offense, you cannot win a national championship. You can't. That's why Alabama wasn't in this playoff. All four teams that were in you can say what you want to about Georgia's offense. They're a damn good offense. And, when push comes to shove, the four best teams arguably had the four best offenses in college football. Now, maybe USC, but they didn't have any defense at all. Tennessee early in the season had a really good offense, no defense at all. I mean, you have to be able to get some stops, no question about it. You got to be physical, but you've got to be able to score to win, to be an elite team in college football today. I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah. No. Hey, Dirchbrook Innovations just asked something interesting. It's like, did Urban have health issues, thus he left coaching? Furthermore, why would he go to UM after having after having his dream destination job of OSU? Like, it might have been a dream destination job at Ohio State, but Urban strikes me as a guy who could have multiple destinations. It wouldn't necessarily. I mean, Nick Saban went to the NFL and came back with his tail between his legs, and then went to his. I think Alabama is a rival of LSU. I don't know if they're not their main rival, but I know LSU certainly thought that was pretty shady when Saban went over to Alabama.
One reason you don't want Urban Meyer is you can't trust him. He'll be in the program for 2 years and he'll come up with some excuse to leave. He's much worse than Harbaugh when it comes to being someone you can't trust to be there. So that alone, that alone would make me not want him.
I just can't imagine. I can't imagine a situation where they would do that, where you'd get a board of trustees to get on board behind him, and I don't even think it's a realistic possibility. And nor, quite frankly, if I am in charge of that hiring search, if Harbaugh's gone, he's not a guy I'm even looking at. Like I'm with you, Diego. I want somebody. If anything, I'm tired of getting jacked around every year and having this uncertainty. I want somebody who wants to be there for 10 years.
Yeah.
So hopefully you get somebody. Yeah. And I think that it's got to be somebody with some continuity. One of my biggest criticisms when they fired Lloyd Carr, and Rich Rod was right after that, wasn't he? Nate, wasn't he right after Lloyd Carr?
Right after Lloyd Carr. Yeah.
Yes. Well, yes. And my biggest criticism about that whole deal was not that Rich Rod wasn't a good football coach. It was a completely different philosophy. They had their pick of NFL quarterbacks year in and year out under Lloyd Carr and hit in that offensive culture and system. And when they went to the spread, it was a completely different philosophy. They didn't even have the roster for it.
Yeah.
And they turned off the spigot to the NFL quarterbacks. So, no matter what, I think you've got to keep continuity with the style of football that they've been playing these last couple of years, and the culture of being tough as hell in the trenches, and that your whole program is geared to compete with Ohio State, and they need to do what Urban did at Ohio State. Was he wasn't just competing with Michigan anymore. He immediately set his sights on Alabama. And that's the level you've got to be ready to go into those semifinal games and win them. And that's what Ohio State's waiting on Ryan Day to do. We've shown, Ohio State has shown they can be competitive in these games, but they haven't won them consistently enough. And that's the next step. That's the next step. They definitely showed on New Year's Eve they belong there. And really, without a pretty significant collapse in the fourth quarter, they should by all rights they should be in this championship game. They really should. I think it's a little different with Michigan because Michigan had too many self-inflicted wounds in that game. You can't throw 2 pick sixes in that game. You can't execute the way they did in the red zone, and give up explosive plays and win that game. But they still had a chance to. That's the crazy part. But Ohio State, they played about as well as they played all year long in all 3 phases. It's just the explosive plays all season long killed them. All season. And the same Achilles heel bit them in the Georgia game. So, it's frustrating to get that close. And obviously you'd love to see at least a closer attempt at the field goal than we got at the end. But, all in all, they showed. I thought Georgia was the best team in the country this year, and Ohio State had them beat.
Hey, before we get into that, because that's going to be like the next segment of this is those playoff games. But okay, so both of you, I want to get your predictions. So is Lloyd Carr? Listen to me. Is Jim Harbaugh gone from Michigan? I mean, is that a done deal? Do you think he's leaving? What?
I'm going to
Diego first.
I'm going to pull a 45. Yes. Simple as that. Yes.
He's gone. He's gone.
I don't think it's even in his court. I really think it's going to be up to an NFL team.
No, assuming he gets an offer.
I just don't think that's a foregone conclusion. And if the one that I think would be the fit, obviously the most obvious fit is the Colts. But we haven't heard anything about that. Today they were talking about the Panthers. The Broncos have reportedly shown interest. I don't know. I mean, I would think if any team goes for him, and isn't it a violation of the Rooney Rule to not go through the hiring process anyway for these teams? So it seems a little odd that we're even hearing anything right now.
The Rooney Rule is a farce. Come on.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Of course it is.
Do you guys know of any issues between Irsay and Harbaugh where Irsay would not want Harbaugh? I mean, you would think he would be, a franchise favorite.
I'm not aware of any. No, I'm not. But who knows?
How many years did Harbaugh play for the Colts?
Yeah, but his family has to want to go too. I mean, when it didn't happen for him last year, I know I can guarantee you it was a done deal in some way. I don't know exactly what happened, obviously, but I know his agent and Harbaugh did not mistake going there for an interview for it just being an interview. He wouldn't do that publicly. Like they thought it was a done deal and something happened. No clue what happened, but something happened. Maybe Mrs. Harbaugh put her foot down and said, "Hey, I'm not moving to Minnesota." Yeah,
I don't think so. I don't think that had anything to do with it. I really don't. I think that the issue there is that he's a very demanding guy, And it wouldn't surprise me if when they got down to the final negotiation, because I believe he was acting as his own agent still at that time, that there was some ask that was just a bridge too far for them, for Minnesota. And Minnesota, interestingly enough, of all the teams we've seen, like, that team was ready to win because they hired a different guy, and they're what are they going to end up being, the 1 or 2 seed, 2 or 3 seed maybe in the NFL or the NFC. Mm-hmm. So they were ready to win, and they weren't really in a position to get pushed around by Harbaugh. So
do you think maybe it was he wanted to pick the players, be a GM, and they didn't want him to be a GM?
Certainly could be.